Initiation by Elisabeth Haich, Chapter 17. I Take My Vow. Little by little I realized that my circle of spiritualist friends had nothing more to offer me. My experiences in these circles, however, opened the door to the human soul, and I saw in amazement how forlorn and lonely people are as they wander around in the extreme darkness of ignorance. My own ability as a medium enabled me to look into the enormous field of the subconscious. I literally took myself apart in the most rigorous kind of self-analysis, refusing to be blinded by uncertain and nebulous theories. Hewing my way with my little axe, I went ahead in this jungle step by step. Spiritualism finally led me to the study of psychology. I began to make a thorough study of the Western science of psychology. For at that time I had not the slightest inkling of the enormous psychological knowledge of the Orientals, particularly the Indians and the Chinese. Whenever we earnestly strive for something and concentrate completely on attaining it, fate always helps us onward. After a thorough theoretical training, I met the head physician of the state mental hospital, who helped me get systematic training and practice. I was given permission to study the patients in every section of the state asylum, including the wards reserved for raving maniacs. One evening at home, I sat for a long time alone in my room and tried to put my thoughts in order. What I had experienced in the asylum was simply horrible, terrible. Dante's Inferno is tame compared with what I had seen. And how many sick people are there on this earth who are suffering, either committed to an asylum or walking about freely? And how many healthy people are there who suffer themselves because they watch the torture these other people go through? Little by little they get sick and go to ruin. And how many mental cases are there who deceive ignorant people simply because they behave normally and have no stamp on their forehead to show that they are mentally ill? Sometimes they get high positions, marry an innocent, trusting husband or wife, and then plunge their relatives, their surroundings and family, often an entire business firm or even an entire nation, into ruin. Hell lay open before my very eyes, and in desperation, I stood on the brink of an unfathomable ocean of suffering, desperate at the helplessness of mankind in the face of this terrible misery. Something must be done. Everybody must be informed about the causes of mental illness. Healthy people everywhere must work together with united efforts to fight this misery. My preoccupation with the mentally ill opened the door to the deepest secrets of a wide range of people's families, and I was amazed to discover that there are many more mentally ill than sane people living in the world. I saw the countless mental abnormalities from which people suffer, and I saw that vast numbers of people could be saved by proper treatment. Their mental balance could be restored by simple means, often merely by a change of surroundings, thus restoring happiness to the families concerned. I sat and I pondered about how much could be done if every healthy person would devote himself to this work. And with all my strength, I wanted to devote myself to overcoming this suffering. But how? And where should I begin? And where could I find help? As I sat asking myself these questions, I suddenly knew that somebody was in the room beside me. My experiments with mental telepathy and spiritualistic seances had trained my nerves to such a degree of sensitivity that even if I were led into a room blindfolded, I could say immediately whether the room was empty or occupied. and if the room was occupied, I could even tell something about the character of the person in it. I now felt the familiar prickly feeling, like a fine electric current telling me that something or somebody was near. But this time I felt the familiar radiation without knowing why it was familiar or where I had met it before. This majestic, completely pure, extremely powerful radiation. And again I heard the familiar voice inside me. Where will you find some help? Inside yourself. Don't you see? This is just the trouble. Everybody is waiting for help from outside. And as everybody is expecting help and not giving it, nobody gets help. But if everybody would give help, everybody would also receive it. Then the whole world would be freed of suffering. I answered the voice within. I don't know who you are, or even what kind of a force you are. I only hear your voice that always tells me the truth. You see my thoughts, my inner being, which is invisible to people, so I don't need to tell you. I want to devote my whole life to overcoming the sufferings of others, even though I be only a grain of dust. With this one grain of dust, I want to increase the helping force. Nothing else in life can interest me anymore. Nothing can make me really happy again as long as I constantly carry the sufferings of others in my consciousness. I want to be a co-worker in the salvation of the world. Careful, said the voice within me. Watch all those big words. To be a co-worker means duty and sacrifice. Then you have to put an end to your imperfections. You must never forget yourself, even for a minute. You must always be on guard that you don't do a single thing in contradiction to the eternal laws of life. All the temptations you haven't been able to withstand so far in your life will come back to haunt you again, and woe to you if you do not withstand them. No mortal can play with the divine forces. You may never again use the powers you achieve as a co-worker for your own personal ends. You may never have personal feelings or consider anything from your own personal standpoint. Be careful. It would be better to go on living your personal life like other people than fail as a co-worker. I warn you. I'm not afraid, I answered. I'm absolutely through with my personal life, and I no longer have any more personal wishes. After all I've been through and experienced, there can be no personal happiness for me. I'm not afraid of any temptations. I will resist them because I have no more illusions. I want to be a co-worker in the great task. For a while, I heard nothing, merely felt infinitely great love radiating towards me. And then I heard the voice again within me. Your self-assurance is well known to me, my child, but don't forget yourself this time. I sat on the divan. I rubbed my brow and I looked around. The room was empty. Who was that? Who is that? Or what kind of power is it that speaks to me with a voice I know so well? How do I know this voice? How does it know my self-assurance? And when had I ever not paid enough attention so as to merit the admonition not to forget myself this time? But I got no further answer.